All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're completely decoding the true history behind the banners of the historical Islamic State. We're going to cut right through all the modern noise and assumptions and use direct primary sources to reconstruct exactly what these banners look like and, honestly, how they were actually used on the ground. So before we start putting this ancient blueprint together, we really have to ask ourselves what the official flag actually looked like, entirely separate from our modern interpretations. You know, when we think of a state today, we immediately picture a national flag waving proudly over a government building, right? But to truly understand the historical caliphate, we have to completely shift that modern perspective. Look at what the legendary 14th century historian Ibn Khaldun had to say. He reminds us that while modern flags are designed to unite nations, ancient banners were purely practical tools. They were used on the battlefield to identify armies and keep troops organized. They weren't emblems of national identity at all. They were literally just the logistical gear of their time.
Here is the roadmap for today. 1. Origins of Islamic flags. 2. The liwaa and the rayah. 3. Design, color, and shape. 4. The debate over text. And finally, 5. Justice over symbols.
Starting off with Section 1, Origins of Islamic Flags, Decoding the Earliest Banners.
Think back to the Prophet Muhammad's early expeditions out of Medina. These flags were strictly for military administration. You absolutely wouldn't find them hanging on a house or flying over the local mosque. To really ground this, let's look at the language itself. Our source dictionary, Al-Qamus al-Muhit, defines the foundational term for these banners, alam, simply as a sign. It's a marker. This proves they were not national emblems designed for civilian pride, but rather highly functional, logistical tools meant to signal exactly where you needed to be in the absolute chaos of a raid or a battle.
Moving to Section 2, the liwaa and the rayah, contrasting the two primary banners.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We're not talking about just one flag representing the whole army here, but two distinct types that created a strict visual chain of command. On one hand, you have the liwaa. This was a white flag belonging to the top commander of a mission, and it was actually often kept rolled up until the fighting officially started. On the other hand, you have the rayah. This was a black banner given to the general army commanders, actively used for rallying specific troops out in the field.
The 11th century scholar al-Sarakhsi hit the nail on the head with this historical ruling. It perfectly confirms how these flags served as a visual hierarchy. The white liwaa signaled the ultimate authority, the sultan, while the black rayah acted as a rallying point for individual squads and battalions. Basically, if you got separated in the blinding dust of battle, you immediately looked for your commander's rayah.
Seriously, think of these flags as the ancient equivalent of modern uniform patches and radio communications rolled into one. They were absolutely essential for keeping troops together. And they were a massive source of motivation, too. The sources tell this incredible, awe-inspiring story of a companion named Musab ibn Umayr at the Battle of Uhud. He held the flag aloft, and even as he suffered fatal wounds, losing first his right hand and then his left, he literally held the banner tight to his chest with his upper arms until his martyrdom. The flag staying up meant the army was still fighting.
Section 3. Design, color, and shape. Let's reconstruct the physical blueprints.
If we pull a visual blueprint directly from the Hadith, the recorded traditions of the Prophet, notice the stark simplicity here. The liwaa is white, and the rayah is black. The rayah is explicitly described as square-shaped and made of a wool material known as namira.
Listen to this specific hadith from Al-Bara bin Azib. It's fascinating because it proves that the primary banner was just a black, square-shaped piece of simple wool. This completely debunks the modern myth of complex, heavily stylized or triangular flags being the standard. It was a practical, highly accessible piece of fabric. Sometimes it was even fashioned from a simple cloak.
But wait, the army wasn't completely monochromatic out there. The sources also reveal that different regiments used flags of entirely different colors alongside the official black rayah. For example, the Ansar regiment utilized yellow banners, while the Bani Sulaim tribe fought under red banners. It was a vibrant, highly organized visual system on the battlefield.
All right, Section 4, the debate over text. Was the Shahada actually written on the flags?
Now we have to neutrally navigate a major scholarly dispute, an ikhtilaf, regarding whether the Islamic Declaration of Faith, the Shahada, was actually inscribed on these plain banners. This is a legitimate difference of opinion among scholars, and it's highly relevant today because modern groups frequently use flags with the Shahada painted right across them.
But as we look closely at the primary texts, the historical evidence for this practice is highly contested.
Here's the catch. The only historical report claiming the flags had writing on them comes through a specific chain of transmission. However, the eminent scholar Ibn Hajar noted that this chain is weak. Why? Well, it relies on a narrator named Hayyan bin Ubaydullah, who is known by his peers to have mixed up and jumbled his accounts in his old age. We've all been there with our memories, right? But in the strict science of hadith transmission, that really matters. Outside of this single disputed account, no other narrators mention writing on the flags.
Our source material concludes that the flags were almost certainly completely plain. Think about it. They didn't exactly have white spray paint readily available in the 7th century desert to meticulously stencil these battlefield tools. Plus, a plain flag aligns perfectly with the simplicity of the early state, and more importantly, leaving the flags plain prevented enemies from capturing and desecrating a banner that bore the holy name of God.
Finally, Section 5, Justice over Symbols, the true meaning of an Islamic state.
This is where the text drops a vital historical reality check. We've seen modern militant groups like ISIS adopt the black rayah, complete with the contested white text, to declare themselves the Caliphate. But as the sources make crystal clear, an official symbol does not create a state. Flying a piece of black cloth does not magically legitimize a government or make it Islamic. Only justice does.
The ultimate takeaway from our sources is perfectly captured by the scholar Ibn Taymiyyah. He states that the very foundation of a state is impartial justice, not the cloth waving above it. A state can survive with justice even without belief, but it will inevitably collapse under oppression, regardless of what religious symbols it hides behind.
So, leaving you with that thought, I hope this explainer has transformed how you view these historical banners. We've seen they were practical, simple tools of administration, not magical emblems of statehood. I really hope this sparked your curiosity to always dig deeper into the primary sources, because if the ultimate symbol of a state is its justice, how much power should we really give to a piece of cloth? Until next time, keep questioning and keep learning.